Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Courtney in case you're new, and it is time for my weekly What's for Dinner. So this week I decided to do things just a little differently. We're gonna do side dishes. I don't know about y'all, but it's easier for me to find the main course for dinner, meatloaf or some kind of roasted chicken or something like that. But side dishes, I get bored of the same like canned green beans or mashed potatoes or mac and cheese. So I love to look for some fun new side dishes. So I have found a few that I am so excited to share with y'all. Some of these are new to me, some of these are not, but they are all delicious, and I will list or link all the recipes down below in the description box. Also, just so you know, most of these I'm not following strictly the recipe because they are way bigger than what I need, so I just kind of cut them down a little. So all the measurements will definitely be listed below. All right, so this bacon ranch pasta salad was absolutely incredible. It was a huge hit in my household. We loved it. So I started off by cooking some pasta. I chose these little bow tie noodles, the little mini ones. They were adorable, and they were like the perfect size and shape for this. To that, I added some mayonnaise and some sour cream. Now, after I cooked my noodles, I ran them under cold water for like 30 seconds, but they're still warm. And I feel like when you're making pasta salad, that's super duper important because it kind of like helps everything mix better and they suck up the flavor a little bit better. So you don't have to do that. A lot of recipes tell you something different, but I always do that, and my results are always fabulous. So to the mayonnaise and sour cream, I added some garlic powder and a really, really heavy-handed amount of ranch seasoning there. And then I added a little milk because we want this to like mix really, really well. And it would have been super thick without like a couple tablespoons of milk. And then I added in frozen peas because I feel like they hold up better. I thawed them in the microwave for all of like 30 seconds so they're partially frozen. And then I added in my bacon that I just chopped up. It's like 6 slices of bacon. I was heavy handed with the bacon and I am not sorry about it at all. And then I just mixed everything together, gave it a really nice stir. It didn't need any salt or anything. That ranch powder is super salty. If you wanted some spice, I think some red pepper flakes would be just awesome in this. But I did not do that because we weren't looking for any kind of heat. And then the original recipe called for some cheese, and I didn't want to be like super heavy with it. So I just put in a few sprinkles of this Sargento. I think it's like a 3 cheese blend or something, a 4 cheese blend, and just a few shreds of that and stirred it right in there. Now, the key to good pasta salad is letting it sit. So I made this ahead of time so it can hang out in my fridge for a couple of hours and everything can like meld together and get to know each other, and it tastes amazing. Now this last step is optional, but my family loves black olives, so I just opened up a can and I used about half of it. And I just like ripped each olive in half and tossed them in there. I didn't want to be super picky about it, and I didn't feel like getting out a cutting board. You could buy the sliced olives if you want. I just buy a case of just regular olives from Sam's Club, so this is what I always have. So this is what I'm working with. But I just kind of ripped each one in half. It doesn't take much time at all. It's super simple. Plus it gives me an excuse to like snack on one or two while I'm making this, and I love olives, so that was really easy to do. But as you can see, this is not a huge serving. There's only 3 of us in the household that would eat it. And actually, my son only ate a little bit. My husband and I, however, over like 3 days, ate a lot of this because we loved it. If you like the Suddenly Salad box stuff, this is way better. And it doesn't take much more time than that. It really is really easy to throw together. There it is. So super delicious. I cannot wait for you guys to try this one because it's easy and it's perfect for summer. I mean, it's so hot outside already here in Texas, and that was so nice and cool. It was just wonderful. All right, so this dish is called melting potatoes. I never made these before, but my husband especially like adores potatoes. So I've been trying to cook them a little more often. It's not something that I cook all the time because they're not my favorite. I always think they're kind of like boring, but this was really good. It was not boring at all. So I started off by melting a couple of tablespoons of butter in my skillet. I added a little olive oil because I don't really want like brown butter. I just want the butter flavor. And then I had sliced up some potatoes. I did mine like, not too thick, not too thin. Think Goldilocks style there, right? They're like, I don't know, maybe an inch, not quite. And then I just kind of laid them around the pan in the butter so that they're nice and flat. I made sure that, like they had their room to cook because we want to get a little color on both sides of these potatoes. So I just put them all in there like that and I let them go. The recipe said like 4 minutes, and I did 4 minutes. And you'll see here, that's what they look like at 4 minutes. And I was kind of disappointed because I'm like, well, that's not really brown. So I did let them cook a little bit longer on the next side just so they could really develop some more color. And they did. They got like this beautiful, rich, deep color. And the flavor from that is just amazing. So I did end up flipping them back over to the first side again just so that they could get a little extra color on there because I felt like they were just kind of plain on that side, and it was sad. So I let them cook a little longer on that first side, but you can see that second side got absolutely amazing color. The flavor is just, oh my gosh. If you like hash browns, then just these potatoes right now would like be perfect for you with a little salt, because the flavor from cooking a potato to that crispy point in butter is amazing. But we're going to follow this melted potatoes recipe. So I took them out of the skillet and I placed them in a casserole dish that was next to my pan. You can't see, sorry, bad angle. My kitchen's like really small, so sometimes it's hard for me to film the bigger shots like this. So sorry about that. But they are just like hanging out in a glass casserole dish right there. So then the recipe calls for some chicken broth, which I don't keep on hand, but I do have better than bouillon. So I just poured a cup of water and some better than bouillon paste in there. I find that it mixes much better over heat. So I'm just kind of stirring it into that water, letting it mix and come together and make that that chicken broth that we need. I do like, well, it's the Sam's Club brand, the Members Mark, but I do like this type of like chicken broth better than the powdery stuff. There's nothing wrong with the powdery stuff. I just like the flavor of this so much better. I did also just like do a quick wipe of my pan with a paper towel. I didn't wash it. Like I just ran a paper towel around the outside because some of the butter had gotten a little darker than I wanted, but there's some of that flavor still left in there. Then I added in a couple of tablespoons of butter, and then I added in some seasoning. I think it called for like thyme, which I didn't have, so I just added in some Italian seasoning. And then I added in some garlic, just some regular old minced garlic. I was pretty heavy-handed with it, I'm not going to lie, and I'm also not going to apologize because that was so, so good. Garlic powder would work just as well too, though, if you've got that. I think typically I kind of lean more towards garlic powder for stuff like this because we're going to be baking these in the oven for a while, and sometimes the garlic can burn. It didn't, so it was fine, but I think garlic powder is great for dishes like this. But then you just pour that right over the top of the potatoes, and then you bake them in the oven, and it really couldn't be much simpler. They are so good. I did pull them out and flip them halfway through just to kind of test their doneness, but there they are at the very end of the day. They are so good. You guys are going to love these. My family just devoured them. They were wonderful. I should have made more. Okay, let's move on to our next meal. This is Mexican street corn salad. I was making this for a potluck, so I'm making like a ridiculously huge amount. You will not need this much for your family. It is so much. But we started off with some sour cream. I'm running very low on my sour cream there, but I like to use every last drop of that Daisy sour cream. It is so good. It's my favorite brand. I love it. And I love that they put it in that squeezy tube. That is so convenient. But I'm just going to like squeeze out every last bit that I can right on into that bowl so we can make our dressing first. So we start off with some sour cream, and to that we're going to add in some mayonnaise. As you guys can see, I'm like strictly measuring here. Haha, you know how I roll. Never measure. But I will list the regular recipe down below so you guys can measure at home. Next, we're going to add in some lime juice. I always add in a pretty heavy-handed amount. I think I always do more than the recipe because I feel like it just needs that pop, and it can get lost so easily in the mayonnaise and sour cream. And then I'm going to add in some salt, and then our seasonings. We're going to do some paprika. I use smoked paprika. I'm also roasting my corn in the oven, but there was so much of it didn't roast very well. But I always feel like this kind of needs a smoky flavor, so smoked paprika is key for me. Then some chili powder, and then finally some cumin. That's not my favorite spice, but you can't make this without it. It really needs it. So you just mix it all together, and you gotta stir really, really well because sometimes the mayonnaise and sour cream don't want to like break down as much as you need them to. But I like to make this ahead of time because if you let it sit off to the side, it all just comes together beautifully. So it's the first thing I always make. And like I said, I do have my corn in the oven. It's just a couple cans of corn that I drained and threw on a cookie sheet and then roasted. But there was, again, so much of it, it just really steamed. Here is my mise en place because we're feeling fancy today. I've got some onion, I've got some red bell pepper, some cilantro, and then I chopped up a poblano. You could do jalapenos, you can do whatever you want. I like poblano, it's beautiful. There's my corn. You can barely see any of the roasted pieces. Again, I needed, I don't know, probably 2 cookie sheets because it was so much corn. But I added that to all of my veggies, and then I just pour that dressing right over the top. I like to scrape out every last bit because I feel like there's never quite enough dressing for this. In the end, it always works out okay, but I'm always looking at the bowl going, there's so much corn and not so much dressing. But, you know, it's fine at the end of the day. So just get that in your bowl and then just give everything a nice mix, bring it all together. And you want to let this one sit, kind of like the pasta salad. This one's really good if you can let it sit for an hour or two, because then the vegetables and the corn soak up that dressing flavor, and everybody just kind of gets to know each other in the bowl. They mix and they mingle, and they form this like really amazing, amazing dish that I just love so much, and I think you will too. So then after we get everything nicely mixed together, we're going to add in our cheese. You're really supposed to use cotija cheese, but my store was completely out, so I got this one, which is as close as I could get really as far as Mexican cheeses go. I guess I probably could have just done Parmesan and that might have been even closer. But this one crumbles and it tastes great and it has a nice flavor. It's not quite as salty as the cotija cheese is, but it was close and we loved it. So I just crumbled this in, and it's just really nice. There's something about it that just is, like I said, beautiful. But again, Parmesan would probably have been an even better substitute. I guess I didn't really think about that. I was just trying to stick with like the whole like Mexican cheese vibe there, because that's what it's supposed to be. But I just crumbled this by hand, and it's not hard to do. It kind of falls apart pretty easily. And then I just gave everything, like I said, a nice hearty mix and let it hang out in my fridge for a little while and come together. And it is so, so good. This stuff always goes quickly at like get-togethers and stuff. And it is perfect for summer because, again, it's another cool dish when it's super hot outside. This has been in the fridge. The corn is nice and sweet and crispy. And then you get like all those wonderful flavors and that bright hint of lime. And you could always leave out the cilantro. I know a lot of people don't like cilantro. So if you're one of those people, skip it. No big deal. And if you want spice, add in jalapeno instead of poblano. All right, let's move on to this Pioneer Woman cheesy garlic bread. Now, this is one that I've made before. I actually used to make this, I don't want to say like all the time because it's like a super heavy thing, but I did make it sometimes. But it was like back before my youngest two kids were born. I don't think I've actually made it since they were born. But this is some of the best cheesy garlic bread you'll ever have. Definitely not low fat, but so good. So I started off with some butter, and then you add some mayonnaise to that. I know it sounds weird. The first time I made it, I thought that is so weird, but it works. Then I added in some roasted garlic, because I had roasted garlic, but just garlic powder would be fine, or minced garlic, anything like that. And you're pretty heavy with it. Then I added in some dried chives because it calls for green onions, and I didn't have any. And then I added in some parsley, and I think that was just like something I do, because I always think garlic bread is so good with parsley. Like when you get it at the store, a lot of times it has little green flecks in it. That's parsley. And I think it tastes really good. It just adds kind of something nice when you see the little green flecks in there. So I had let my butter soften, but not quite as much as it probably needed to. So I was really having to mash it together, but it did come together. It worked out in the end. But definitely if you have time, like soften it in the microwave or leave it out a decent amount of time. So to that, we're going to add in first some cheddar cheese and then some Parmesan cheese. I'm actually making an Alfredo tonight, so I had shredded like a whole ton of Parmesan. So I added in a very generous handful. I know it looks like it's way too much cheese for that little bit of butter, but I promise it's going to come together. Just keep folding and mashing, and everything just gets to know each other, and it forms this beautiful, garlicky, cheesy paste of absolute deliciousness. It just takes a few minutes. It's kind of like a dough at first, and you really just got to work it and get everything mixed in. But when you do, it is so, so good. Again, this is not a low-fat recipe, but it is amazing. If you like cheesy garlic bread from the pizza places, I can't think of where our favorite place is. Oh, Cece's. We used to really love their cheesy garlic bread. It was always good. This is kind of similar to that. It reminds me, like the flavor profile reminds me of that. So if you like that, you're probably going to really, really enjoy this dish. But once I get everything all incorporated, I'm just doing 2 small pieces because my husband and I are the only ones that are going to eat this, and this was too much for even us. We actually had to reheat some the next day. But just slather on a nice thick chunk onto your bread. It needs to be thick. If you go look at the link I'm going to post to the picture in the original recipes there, it's a thick layer of the cheesy goodness. So you really want it nice and thick like that. So I just split what I had in half and put half on that little, it's like a third of an Italian loaf from Walmart. And then I put the other half on the other side. And then we're just going to put this in the oven and let it melt and get ooey gooey and delicious. If you like your cheese brown and bubbly at the very end, you can hit it with a broiler just so it gets those delicious brown bubbles on it. I didn't do that. I just let it get all nice and melty while I was putting together the Alfredo sauce. But I like mine just melty, like I said. This is so good. This is addictively good. It is crazy. But there it is at the very end. It's melty and delicious and bubbly and fantastic, and the bread is toasty but soft in the middle, and the butter's melted into it. Like, it's so many things going on that are just absolutely fabulous. You're gonna love it. Okay, on to our next dish. So this is actually the last one. This is called crack green beans, and my family adored these. They were so good. I didn't make enough. So this only ended up being like 4 servings at the end of the day. My family does love green beans though. So I melted some butter in the microwave, and then I added my brown sugar to it. And it says to do this on the stovetop, but I'm like, man, we're dirtying up a lot of dishes. We're not going to do that. So I just put that back in the microwave and let the sugar kind of melt a little bit in there. It worked just fine for me, not a big deal, because we're going to bake this at the end of the day anyway. So I didn't really see why we needed to melt it all together to begin with. This is what I did. You should probably follow the recipe, but this worked for me. All right, so then I realized it was super hot, put it on a hot pad so it didn't mess up my counter. Then I added in some garlic powder and gave that a nice stir to incorporate. And we are also going to be adding in some soy sauce. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I'm not adding in any salt because when the soy sauce is salty, and I use salted butter in my house. Like, I just always use salted butter. I don't think it needs any salt at all. It was perfect. It was like this beautiful sweet and salty blend of flavor. If you want some heat, I would say definitely go for it. But I didn't even miss not having pepper in there. Like, there was just so many good flavors going on. So once this is all incorporated, then we're going to go ahead and add in our cans of drained green beans. Now the recipe called for like, I think 5 cans, and I thought that was way too much, so I just did 2. I toyed with the idea of 3, only did 2, should have done 3. Again, like I said, this was 4 servings. My family devoured these, but we love green beans, so there's that. So then I had some bacon that I just chopped up and added in there. You could always use like the real cooked bacon pieces if that's what you have. I use those quite often. I will say, like, real fresh cooked bacon is always better, but those other things work in a pinch so well. Then you just pour the sauce over and you bake it in the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes, and you've got some incredible green beans. Like I said, my family loved these. They were fantastic, and I think you will love them too. Anyway, guys, that's going to be the last recipe for today's video. These were the side dishes we had over the week, and they were all so good. I will definitely be having these way more often. Especially that pasta salad, man, that was good. And those melting potatoes, those were definitely like the highlights of the week. We loved everything, but those were so incredible. But again, everything's linked or listed down below. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on my channel. If you have not already, please consider hitting that subscribe button and sticking around because I do tons of food content. All right, y'all, I hope you have a fantastic week. Check out some of these videos up on the screen now, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.